What is going on, everyone? Tim from Tirfon Orbital. Today I would like to go over an in-depth walkthrough for a commission install that I completed on a KR Sabers Fortis. This hilt is a brother or sister or pair, in my opinion, to the Regiis that came out last year. This hilt is an absolutely beautiful hilt, in my opinion. It is a really well machined and well made hilt, true to form. Anything that usually comes from Cal and company over at KR Sabers is you can expect it to be top quality. This is a very uniquely designed hilt in that not only is the grip a different shape, right? The internals of this hilt are a little bit different as well. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in detail when we go over the chassis. But designing a chassis for this was a little bit of a challenge because there are two offset inner diameters, right? So typically we're used to, as a designer, like chassis designer, we're used to just a straight tube, right? There are some hilts that step down and have different internal diameters as you go down the length of the hilt. With this particular hilt, there are two different inner diameters, but they are kicked they're like offset, right? So it was a little interesting trying to design for that, but I'm pretty happy with the result. This is a removable chassis, nothing fancy on the outside. I didn't get any blinkies or anything on this one, but I did put some greebly work on it, and that's it, right? So without further ado, let's come right into Fusion and talk about this chassis. Okay, so here is the chassis that I've designed for this hilt. Let's start with the main body of the chassis first, and then we'll talk about this upper PCB section. So this is the chassis. It's hard to tell because I've already put a bunch of ridges and greeblies on this, but this lower section is a different diameter than the upper section. You can kind of tell by doing a top-down look at the chassis itself. So that lower section is this larger diameter piece, and then as you come up, it offsets a little bit. So designing the chassis for this was a little bit interesting. I knew that we didn't have a lot of room in the upper part of the hilt, so I chose to forego any kind of blinkies or anything like that and just concentrate on a lot of greebly work. I did do a kicked Proffie in this particular install. I like doing those with tight builds. So we've got a kicked Proffie board here. It just slides in this sled. Here is our battery tray. Okay, plenty of room for a 24 millimeter speaker. That is the other interesting thing about this hilt. The pommel section is right just over 26 millimeters, so not quite enough room for, obviously not enough room for a 28 millimeter speaker, but plenty of room to do a fully enclosed 24 millimeter speaker. And the 24 actually sounds really great in this hilt. This is a really, really phenomenal hilt. So typical Tim greebly work along both sides of the chassis, right? And as we make our way up to the top, we've got a 6-rail PCB. This is from Smugglers Outpost. This upper section, so this was another challenge for me to design for, right? So you've got two plunger, like spring plunger switches in the upper section of the hilt. So what I did to make this a removable chassis, I didn't want to put switches on the chassis. I didn't want like a super long chassis or anything like that. So I chose to do an inner chassis that holds not only the PCB emitter, but the male end of the 6-rail PCB. I also had to embed some tactile switches in this so that those plunger switches on the outside of the hilt could make contact with them, right? Two different depths. I'm not gonna lie, I did 2 test prints of this PCB holder because I just did not get the depth right for the switches, right? But finally after that second print, I figured out a depth that worked for me. That's one of the beauties of having a resin printer on hand. I can easily print prototype parts. So that's it, right? That is the chassis. Very interesting chassis. Let's come up top and talk about it really quick, actually. So here it is. This is the KR Sabers Fortis. It's probably full of fingerprints already. It is a chrome, I believe this is a chrome plated brass shroud. So it is a fingerprint magnet. But with that being said, it is a very, very beautiful hilt. I do want to talk about the chassis first, right? So here is the chassis. I just did my typical pass of pewter and silver, or pewter and onyx rub and buff on this. It gives it a nice gunmetal look, right? Here's our Proffie board. There is a kill switch in this build. Battery trays here, and there's our 6-rail PCB. But yeah, it's hard to tell by just looking at it like this, but you've got a different inner diameter in this section. I mean, you can kind of tell if you look at the grip. This is another really interesting thing about this hilt that I like, is this grip. It's a really, really unique feeling grip, but you can kind of tell it steps down and then steps back up. There's like an angular portion of the grip. So I had to design the chassis around that. But I'm pretty happy with the result, right? It's a really, really unique hilt. So to use your chassis, spring side is your negative. Take the flat part of your battery, put it in that battery tray. So this was already on. This is a Proffie V3 Proffie board. So you do have to put this chassis in a certain way. So the way that I've been doing it is make sure the battery is facing towards the knurled section of the hilt. Slide the chassis in until it stops, and then you take your pommel, okay, oops, and just thread that pommel in, and you're ready to go. Come down to the bottom. So twist to activate, twist to deactivate are on. Let's see what else we put on here. I don't know how to explain it. Okay, all right, nice long post off there. I don't know how to explain it. It's just a very unique feeling hilt. I don't know. It's unlike any other hilt I've held. Wow.
Morgan Elspeth.
So to the client, I have. To the client, I've loaded this up with the fonts that you specifically requested. I will also include the config on the SD card of this build. Let's put a blade in it and do a quick demo. Okay, so this is a 1-inch blade holder. Take your blade and make sure it's resting on those PCB pins. There is a black set screw underneath these vents here that serves as your blade retention. So make sure that is hugging the blade and you're ready to go. See what else we put on here.
Ahsoka Tano.
Bottom button is your aux. Top is your main. Let's see what else we put.
Ezra Bridger.
Really nice feeling hilt.
Sabine Wren.
One more. Really, really nice hilt. It's like light. I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's a very different feeling hilt, right? But a very, very well made hilt. Like I said, as we typically expect, the products from KR Sabers are usually really high quality, but very, very unique profile. Really, really classy looking hilt. Again, this is just another one of those hilts that is ripe for etching. So this shroud, I'm sure there are some really talented folks that are going to do some crazy stuff with these shrouds, etch-wise and powder coating-wise, right? So anyhow, that's all I've got. To the client, thank you very much for trusting me with your install. To the viewers, if anyone has any questions about this particular install or anything really, please do not be a stranger. And with that being said, may the force be with you always. Have a good one, everybody.